So the question is, what is a loan closing, and how do we navigate that whole process as a home buyer? What do I expect? That type of thing. So the biggest, most important celebratory time, I guess, would be when you close on the home. You get the keys, it's yours, and you can do with it what you want. That should be an exciting time, and it usually is. Here's a few things to plan for, prepare for, and be watching for as you get closer to your closing date. So hopefully, if you've come to an agreement with the seller on the purchase of a home, you've put that closing date out, ideally about 30 days, just to give everything enough time that has to happen behind the scenes. Can definitely be done quicker, but that's a good start for a rule of thumb to give the lender, the title company, the appraiser, the homeowner's insurance agent, all of those third parties that need to touch that transaction. It gives them enough time. But as you get closer to that closing date, a few things will happen. Typically, your loan will be approved by the underwriter or conditionally approved, meaning they need a few additional items from you. Very, very normal. Don't let that stress you out or something to be concerned with. That's very normal in the process. The next thing, you're going to want to make sure your homeowner's insurance is finalized and you've got that premium all nailed down and they've communicated that with your lender. You're also going to want to make sure the appraisal came in at the value that you anticipated and you've reviewed it and you don't have any questions. And then that week of closing or leading up to closing, a couple of things are going to happen. Typically, at least 3 days prior to your closing, you're going to have what's called a copy of your closing disclosure. That will go through all of your final numbers, give you a real good idea of what you're going to need for funds at closing, and just spells out monthly payments and compares the initial quotes to the final numbers, all of that. Sometimes the final one doesn't come until right before the closing, depending on some other variables. But at least 3 days prior to closing, you'll have a copy of that initial one, and you should be able to talk with your loan officer as far as if there's a few things that are still being finalized. You're also going to want to make sure you coordinate the funds that are needed for your transaction, meaning if you need to come to closing with $5,000, $50,000, whatever that number is, you're going to want to coordinate either a cashier's check or a wire to the title company to make sure that the funds are there and available the day of closing. Common thing is to assume that a personal check will be accepted, and that's not always the case if the dollar amount gets to be over certain thresholds, usually $500 or $1,000, some are more, some are less. But if it's over that amount, then you're going to need typically certified funds in the form of a cashier's check or a wire. So make sure to check with your loan officer on that. And then the last thing is you want to make sure that you are aware of your monthly payment and any other documentation that you might need for closing. Typically, that's things like 2 forms of ID, driver's license, other forms, that type of thing. And then you know where you're going for the closing, the signing. And then also if you are married, typically your spouse will need to be there as well. So just have that conversation with your loan officer. Hopefully they've already talked to you about it. But if it's the week of closing, that's basically what to expect. And then when you get to the closing itself, that might take anywhere from 15 minutes to 30, 45 minutes to sign everything. Some of it's electronic typically. Some of it's still the old wet signing signatures. So that should be a time where it's really exciting. You get the keys, you get the home, and you get to start the process of making it your own or even moving in. So that's what to expect. Hopefully you're to that point. If you've got questions and you'd like to get to that point, reach out. We'd love to help you. And hopefully you found this helpful, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.